Time to look at the big headlines this morning. Time for the news review with me, Fred Ndebuli. This morning we have in studio Beatrice Elachi, Speaker, Nairobi County Assembly. Good to have you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much.
Next to Beatrice Elachi, we do have Dan Maanzo, MP Makueni, also joins the panel. Murigi Kamande, a lawyer and an analyst as well. Good to have you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Kipruto Rapkirwa, Deputy Party Leader, ANC. A lot happening in NASA. Where is Musalia Mudavadi? The big question. We have the Deputy Party Leader will be telling us that. Because, yes, take oath or just shut up. Raila Allah is still Wiper Leader, Kalonzo Musyoka. And interestingly, Musalia Mudavadi is escaping quite a lot of this criticism. I don't know why. We'll be asking what the plan is. The big one on the Daily Nation, Jubilee MPs fight State House gag. We've been talking about this, trying to ask them questions. Everyone denies that they're being gagged by State House, but now the story on the front page of the Daily Nation comes out. A rebel member accuses Kenyatta and his deputy Ruto of communist tendencies. Uhuru and Ruto have boxed their allied members of parliament into a corner with numerous orders and instructions from the presidency. And now the embers of a quiet fury inside the chambers are bursting into flames that could burn out of control. Yes. Remember also, we're still following the big story today. The World Cup trophy is in Kenya. It's landing this morning from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. President Uhuru Kenyatta will be receiving that trophy at State House Nairobi at 9 a.m. And then Kenyans who would wish to view the trophy will get an opportunity at the KICC tomorrow before it leaves for Maputo, Mozambique. Remember, all this is as the trophy makes a world tour ahead of the World Cup in Russia later on in the year. Okay, so let's take a look at the headlines this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start off with the big one on the Daily Nation. Jubilee MPs fight State House gag. It's been talked about. There's been concerns raised about how much influence Jubilee Party has, especially in the Houses of Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate, even in terms of how they elect members to committees. NASA has also been accused of influencing their members in some way, negatively, the House, especially when it comes to boycotting House sessions. But the kind of influence that the executive has on the legislature has caused serious concerns because, yes, Jubilee Party enjoys a supermajority in Parliament. The executive still has a lot of control on what happens in the Houses. Jubilee holds its parliamentary group meetings at State House Nairobi, which says a lot. And talking to a number of MPs off the record, they say once you attend that parliamentary group meeting, you just keep quiet and you can't say anything. But now it comes out. And they say, and if I may put this, now the embers of a quiet fury inside the chambers are bursting into flames that could burn out of control. You are a member of the Jubilee Party. You're not in Parliament right now, but you've attended some of these meetings. Is this a fact that State House is gagging members of Jubilee Party?
No, I think it's not gagging. I think, first of all, it's not State House. Let us start that the discipline within political parties, I think, is what every party is trying to instill, and therefore the party leader of Jubilee is none other than the President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. So when he's doing his PG, he's doing it as the party leader, and he brings in the rules and regulations of the party to the members. I think what the members are feeling is that this has not been there. It's not a culture that we have inculcated in ourselves, and I know there's a deputy party leader, there's Maanzo here in Wiper. I believe all the parties, the members are feeling something because parties now have decided if this is the ideology we believe in, then you must respect that ideology. Now for the members of Parliament, I think they are not gagged because we have a media center in Bunge, and therefore they can say anything concerning their constituencies when there's an issue. You can't just say you've been gagged by State House and Kapondi is facing hell in Mount Elgon. He can't wake up and tell his people I was gagged by the president. No, he has to speak about what is happening in his constituency. I think what the president is trying to tell them, we have finished politics, and therefore even if you're coming on a media show, then try to bring in now what you believe in is that Kenya has to now start appreciating we need to have now work.
But when we talk about gagging, and of course there's on one hand party discipline, which should be the case, but also there's also the kind of influence that executive wants to have over the legislature, and that means whatever house business goes on in Parliament, in either house of Parliament, that the executive wants to have a hand in it, and even individual members are not allowed to think independently, even when they execute their basic mandate in Parliament. You sit in the National Assembly. Yes. These are your colleagues from the Jubilee side. Is this what they tell you?
First, I can confirm that Parliament has now become a rubber stamp for the executive. Two, it is true that some of them have been ganged because some of them are too careless. You see, for a political party, you must have a spokesperson in the political party, or a person who, even if they speak, they will speak with, they have consulted sufficiently within the party. So we had some of the members who are too careless, or even, you know, try to outshine the party leadership. So I think that sort of discipline, I do agree with it, but it should not be to an extent that you interfere with the political rights of that particular person, or the constitutional rights. It should be, people should be allowed to air their views honestly, and of course without causing discomfort, or without breaking now the constitutional rights of another person. Because where your rights end is where another person's rights start. Yes. And I think discipline is important. But these members of Parliament, you can see they no longer participate in radio shows, in the television shows. You see internationally, even under CNN, you have politicians commenting on issues, and you have this sort of panels going on. But I know there is a threat that even in future, all panels will be stopped, and you can see, just recently the media was totally ganged itself. So we must know when to stop. Yes. When it comes to ganging people and stopping flow of information.
Yes, Bonamurigi Kamande, of course, as an observer of what's happening politically, yes. You must have noticed a change, even in the kind of panels we have. Yes. Jubilee members are becoming quieter, more cautious. But even in the House, case in point, the election of members to the Parliamentary Service Commission, which is basically a body that takes care of the welfare of members, but even that, they are not allowed to pick their own people. They had an issue, especially the list from Jubilee, they had an issue with at least 2 names, but they were told, no, you cannot do anything. This is what the party has decided. It is your welfare, but we decide. Don't you think that one, as Bonadan Manzo says, is an infringement on the rights of members?
First of all, what you need to understand is, you see the headline is clear. These are Jubilee MPs. In that house, their capacity, they are agents of the Jubilee Party. They were elected to that parliament on a platform of the Jubilee Party. Mm-hmm. And so what happens right now is, you had some time back the president saying that the period for politicking is over. So whatever, to respond to the headline, is you cannot say it is a gag per se. You remember some time back you would have Jubilee MPs all over in all radio stations, on all TV stations, and you'd get contradictory information from all of them. Mm-hmm. And so what was lacking is that there was a gap in the flow of information between what the government once communicated and what the MPs themselves are communicating out there. If you go to the House and see what has been happening, I would want to differ with Honorable Manzo that Parliament has become a rubber stamp.
It is.
What has happened is that Jubilee is implementing its I would say its manifesto and its policy. And so what is
even when it comes to welfare of individual members?
Not just welfare. You look at the membership of the committees. Mm-hmm. Some time back you see the what do you call them? The likes of Keter. They were whipped. They tried to move away from the party position, but the party stood its ground and said, if these are the people whom we've recommended and forwarded for chairmanship into those committees, then this should be the policy. So I think what is happening is that there is the institutionalization of the party in Parliament. That is what I would say. Okay. That you're not going there, even if you're an independent, you're a Jubilee member of Parliament. What you need to do in that Parliament is to toe the line and then advocate for the party's position. Okay. And that's
so
it.
Party strength is now coming out. Parties are becoming stronger.
Essentially, if in any house where you have a majoritarian rule, you want the numbers. Why do you want the numbers? Because you believe that in those numbers, that is where you get your strength. Okay. And in that strength, you need all the numbers to your side. That is the reason why you have whips. They want to whip the entire membership to toe a certain line.
Okay. Kipruto Arap Kirwa, you've been in the National Assembly for a while previously. Do you remember a point in time when a party, either KANU or a NARC, was this strong, that it had such kind of influence as we are seeing Jubilee have on its members currently in the House?
Yeah, thank you so much. For the 20 years I served as a Member of Parliament, I served 15 years under KANU and 5 years under NARC. And I remember KANU, despite the fact that of the 15 years, I served 5 in KANU, when KANU was a single party, and Kenya was, of course, a single party state. But the intolerance that I see today cannot be compared with any other intolerance in the history of Kenya, except the first presidency, where the presidency was the ultimate alpha and omega. This is exactly what is happening. Possibly we are full cycle, and we are seeing a lot of intolerance. Because when a member of parliament is elected, he is elected on behalf of a certain constituency, and that constituency is unique in terms of interest, in terms of configuration, and therefore each member must of necessity express the aspirations of the people of his constituency. Yes, the party sponsors you, but to the extent of just allowing you to be a member of parliament through party ticket. But the party must also recognize that some of these young members of parliament are aspiring to be leaders in the future, and they must develop their requisite capacity to take on issues, regardless of whether they are towing the party line or not. That is the position I hold, and I grew up in politics knowing that my constituency is first and the party comes second.
But then again, it could be, the same could be said for NASA, because it has a similar kind of influence on its members. When you, as a coalition, you tell your members boycott all House sessions, it has an effect on the general outcome of whatever happens in the House as well. Now, when we look at these two things together, the kind of influence Jubilee has, the kind of influence also NASA has, probably at a different level, what therefore can we expect from the 12th Parliament? Are we saying that now we are seeing members already complaining, yes, it's just a rubber stamp House, they do not have the liberty to think independently, they're not allowed to. Then what should we expect from this House? Is it a weakened legislature that both NASA and Jubilee have so much influence on their members that we cannot expect any independent thinking from Dan Maanzo, for example?
No, I think you'll find very many independent thinking, because one of the what I like, even if we do all this, yeah, in the end of the day, when members go to their committees, now they don't look at the party, they look at what has brought us to the committee and how do we...
But we've already seen the kind of influence even on committees in terms of how they choose and elect their leaders, especially from Jubilee, that if at all we say this person is not going to be chairman, he will not.
Because that's the party's institutional way of doing their things. But in the end, when you become the chairman, you are not a chairman of Jubilee anymore. You are a chairman of a committee called Water, and you have to deal with issues of water. And therefore, in that membership, you will find every interest coming now from every constituency, because the interest I have for water, maybe in my constituency, will not be the interest of the other member. And therefore, we will have to agree. So, because it's a legislation that is going to affect all of us in our constituency. So there is no way, when it comes on the floor of the House, we will vote on it, but in sense, 80% of what will be in that report is what the members in the committee agreed.
So you're saying eventually this kind of influence will wane, and the members will have some lateral space to do a few
And they do have, because you can't tell me, and I don't believe that the president gagged them on doing their issues of representation for their constituencies. No. So what the members are trying to do, they are trying to use the gag to go and now refuse and just tell their members, lie to their constituencies that, you know, we've been gagged. He has not gagged anyone to come out strongly and defend his constituency on what is happening there, because you are the representative at that time. You have to inform the president what is happening in your constituency. And the only way you can do that is when you're at home on a platform where there is media. So for me, they should not use the strength of the party to say they have been gagged.
Okay.
They should say, within Parliament, we should follow the principles of our party, and this is what we believe in.
Dan Manzo, Parliament does not exist solely to serve the executive. It should serve Kenyans. Your coalition, NASA, has asked you to boycott quite a number of things, including the vetting of the cabinet, which is a serious national duty, because now the cabinet secretaries we have will still continue serving Kenyans, whether or not NASA took part in that vetting process. Jubilee has a lot of influence. Should we really expect the 12th Parliament to serve Kenyans, really? Is it just serving the executive? You've been in the 11th Parliament, so you know the difference. How different is this one? And is it going to serve us?
Well, it's quite different, and first and foremost, we are elected to serve Kenyans. One of the major roles of Parliament is the issue of budget, which now has become a tool of the executive. At the moment we have a tyranny of numbers, then unless you have an executive willing to be reasonable, then whatever he wants is what is going to be done, even by his own members. We're in a situation whereby whatever is directed from the executive is what is done in the House. When it comes to budget, you change very little. At the same time, even if we participated in the vetting of the CSS, the new ones, first of all, there was a problem in that the older CSS were not revetted. It could be a legal loophole, but the president used it very well. Some of these ministers who have come back from the previous regime, from the previous House, from 11th Parliament, who we vetted, they have not had an opportunity to be vetted by the current Parliament. Mm-hmm. We've not had an opportunity to see how has wealth changed. Because, you know, at a material time you must declare your wealth. Mm-hmm. And that opportunity was not accorded, and what Jubilee did was to pass them everything as it came from state.
And the legislature was quiet.
And we did not see anybody be dropped out. I mean,
isn't that an issue that probably NASA should have raised in the House, and probably even in terms of legislation, ensure
even if NASA raised it,
you get to be revetted?
Even if NASA raised it, since you know where this begins, it first of all begins with the problem with the election on August 8th. So an illegitimate government must be legitimate all the way. Why should you help it become legitimate?
But Murenge Kamande, are you sensing the kind of hopelessness we are feeling as Kenyans when a member of the National Assembly speaks in this kind of manner that we shouldn't expect much, it's already not happening, we're just a rubber stamp house, even if we do this, nothing much will change, surely?
You know what Honorable Manzo is trying to do is to justify their failure to perform their role in Parliament, their watchdog role in Parliament. Essentially what you look at is, if at all there were any issues they had with the CSs, they would have had the guts to sit in those committees, participate in the what do you call, in the vetting. If there are any issues that they would arise, they would tell the public, listen, we raised this issue and nobody listened to us. But do not sit back. You watch, you just make money while observing from the periphery, and then you just come here and with the kind of attitude that you are seeing from Honorable Manzo, and say there is nothing much you can do because you do not have the numbers. First of all, what you have is you've seen that the Aga State elections have been vindicated. Look at the number of election petitions that are being kicked out because the petitions themselves were very frivolous. They all tried to copy the Raila 1 petition in the hope that the entire election would be nullified. But at the end of it all, what are you seeing? You are seeing people being subjected to heavy cost. So at the end of the day, NASA and its affiliates should not just come and tell us that since we failed on August 8th, or since we did not get the numbers that you envisaged in August 8th, we just let Jubilee have their leeway for the rest of the period. Yes. Let them do their watchdog role, and then from there on we can move forward. Let me add something. There's remember during the House committee session of the vetting of after the report of the CSs was placed before the House, you could tell that there were divergent views within Jubilee Party in itself, where were NASA members of Parliament to raise their concerns.
But yet even with the divergent views within Jubilee, they still had to pass it as it is, not raise any questions, but at least not in the House.
There are those ones, there are those committees that justified the appointments as they were.
But they've been reduced to murmuring on the sidelines, but they cannot do anything.
They were not just murmurs. Yeah. These are opinions that were raised on the floor of the House. And I'm saying is that what NASA should have, they should have those guts. Say now, August 8th is behind us. we have a role to perform. We are already members of parliament. If we believe that there is independence, that Honorable Manzo can make an independent decision away from the party, away from the NASA position, then he should go to that house and perform his role. Not just tell us that we do not have the numbers and we can do nothing.
Finally, on this matter, Kipruto Rapkirwa, whatever Jubilee is doing to its members could be seen from any different lenses, of course. There are those who criticize, there are those who say parties must be stronger. But even what NASA is doing should be questioned. Would irresponsible be a good word to describe what NASA is doing in the House, that by staying away and ignoring anything and saying, after all, they have numbers, even if we go in, nothing will change, so let's stay away. Isn't that a bit irresponsible?
Well, let me go back to what the lawyer said. And he knows better than I do, because I'm not a lawyer, that every petition is a unique template. And you cannot actually mirror petitions in terms of those that fail and those that succeed. Number two, circumstances are different, because you can have petitions in the same constituency about the MCA, about the MP, about senator, or any other position, but the circumstances are unique and they are different. And even petitions fail on technicalities. Therefore, it is not true, and it is not even logical, for us to say now that all petitions are not going, most of the petitions are not going through, therefore the presidential petition on August was frivolous. Number two, my position that I take as a Kenyan and also as a student of leadership is that there are no political parties in Kenya that fit the bill. All these are convenient assembly of vehicles for individual journey. Today, if Uhuru and Ruto walked out of Jubilee, there will be no Jubilee. And even those who are shouting Jubilee at the highest voice will actually, they come from Jubilee and go away, because we have not built institutions called political parties. What we are trying to do now is to institutionalize parties by instilling discipline. But discipline does not mean stopping members from making or expressing their own unique positions that they see. We in ANC, and I don't want to talk on behalf of any other party, we in ANC believe that members of parliament or any other member of ANC that is making a certain position that may be at variance with the position of the leadership of the party is free, but must also do with the necessary decorum and respect of the leadership of the party. Because if we don't have respect, then there is no institution that we are building.
So the blanket asking of members of NASA, of which your party is an affiliate, to boycott sittings, my question was, can that be described as irresponsible? You know,
in politics, different tools are used to achieve different results, or the same results. Therefore, it was a tool that we were using as a way of pressuring the Jubilee. And therefore, and as you know, Jubilee coalition has run amok because of the numbers. And these numbers were contributed by running candidates against each other. And therefore, Jubilee took advantage of that and are now saying that, look, even we are more members of parliament. It is not entirely true. If you are to collectively get the votes in each constituency, in each county, that were won by NASA members of parliament, some who failed, some who won, collectively, Jubilee would not be having the majorities they have. For example, in Trans Nzoia, put all the votes of ODM, ANC, and Fort Kenya, both for senator, governor, Jubilee would have been swept out of Trans Nzoia. But I ran on ANC, my colleague ran on Fort Kenya, and there was another candidate on ODM. All put together, we have 160,000 votes against the 70 of Jubilee. So at times it's not entirely true, but because it has become something that they are saying in the media and it's become their song, even Kenyans believe that Jubilee overran all of us in the entire country.
Well, the fact remains that Jubilee in the House has a supermajority, very close to actually having that supermajority.
They have the numbers, yes. But just arithmetic.
No. Yes. But I want Mheshimiwa to appreciate that in democracies, and that is why we either think of how we always do our vote, but even if you won with one vote, you're the winner. So in the end of the day, with 171 members of parliament of Jubilee, I mean, you have no choice. And anyway, why do we go to competitions? Because when I look at Kenyans, it's like we still believe, which we have to do it in our constitution then, if we want this hybrid thing, But if we are going to go an American style, you have no choice but to sweep everything. And that is why you go to a competition, I lose, and my opponent takes.
Their lack of strategy should not be an excuse.
Exactly.
No, yes.
Well, I'm not saying they didn't win. I'm just saying the figures talk otherwise.
Okay, but
the figures talk otherwise.
On this issue of party strength,
Yes.
now that you say we cannot really say that we have parties in Kenya that are really based on any proper ideology, it's just vehicles for election and based on individuals.
My argument is as follows,
do you
and
think
I don't want to be
that party
misunderstood.
strength, do you think it's necessary to encourage this kind of strong parties, a strong Jubilee, a strong NASA, now that you know that it's not based on any proper ideology, it's just based on who is the leader?
Well, I think that the most important thing is to institutionalize the parties, so that from the nomination, because you see, I'm not looking at Jubilee per se. It is the ruling party today. But did it go through proper party nomination exercise? The answer is no. There were so many problems unless the two colleagues from Jubilee were not in the country when the nomination exercise was
But I was part of that nomination.
Yeah.
Yes,
but
and
you
I
see,
went to a
we
very
know.
rigorous nomination.
Don't you see a risk of having a strong party with no ideology? Don't you think that that doesn't serve Kenyans?
Let me tell you something. For example, the democracy in the U.S. thrives in the strength in the two parties.
But the two parties are based on ideology, very strong
exactly,
ideology.
that's what I'm saying.
And the clear ideology.
If we can institutionalize that, you know what we've been lacking is a situation where you have an institutionalized party, a party that is going to succeed and is going to supersede their, what do you call, their party leaders. For example, if Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto leave the political scene today, would we expect Jubilee to survive? That's the question we're asking ourselves. If the answer would be yes, then we're in the right direction. We do not have...
So you agree the answer is no, as it is right now?
No, you see, what we have right now is we have Jubilee as a party. It has institutionalized its operations. That's what I would say. From the legislature, the executive. And the same is being reflected in the county assemblies. So you have a party, if there is a certain ideology that is going to be seen from those parties, that is what we need to encourage. But you do not have parties, as Mheshimiwa is saying, that parties, we just have a coalition of convenience, so that now, when we go to the top, we'll only sponsor a candidate up there, but the others we can engage.
I did not say coalition of convenience, lest he misleads me. What I said, they are assembly of vehicles for individual conveniences. Yeah,
and
not
based on the
ideology.
individual at the top.
At the top, yeah.
Yes,
the same problem even with your coalition. If at all the leadership was to move or adopt a different vehicle, what happens to the rest? And the question is, don't you think as a country we run a risk of actually working to strengthen these two vehicles with no proper ideology just because the leaders are strong enough?
I just want to take you to the good example of the South African ANC. You remember that the party is so institutionalized that when the president was no longer following the law, they could actually impeach him as a party. Now that's the situation. The situation in Kenya is the reverse. That whoever is on top holds everybody else at ransom, and there's nowhere you can send that person to. You remember we had PNU as a very big party. Today it doesn't exist as such. It is you know, now a small party, very, very small, just like even smaller than many other parties. And that is said by its numericals in parliament and county assemblies. That's just one example. So that tells you nothing stops Jubilee in the future from being in such a state, depending on what the coalitions which are going to be formed in 2022. So we need now to begin growing strong democracies right from now, so that the people own the parties and not the other way around.
Yes, we are doing probably the right thing by strengthening parties, but we appear to be doing it in reverse, as Bonadan Maro says, that it's not the proper way of strengthening parties. We are starting from the top. A powerful leader creates a vehicle for himself. What happens when the leader moves? Don't you think that's a risk?
Well,
even for Jubilee members?
I think for Jubilee now it's different, because you remember when Jubilee started, they never believed it was for both Uhuru and Ruto. Most people kept on saying it's for Ruto. So I believe going forward to 2022, you'll still see Jubilee, and it will be as strong as it is. What I want to say is, and I know that is why Mheshimiwa will say that, is that we need to ask ourselves also, is Kenya now at a level where we can now leave these things of calling coalitions and we focus on just 4 parties and compete with those 4 parties, and whoever wins, wins. That is the question we need to ask ourselves.
But even the process
because
of how you form these parties matters. None is based on ideology. We're just forming vehicles, making them super heavy.
I believe that why we are finding MPs now feeling it and saying they are gagged is because they feel now the rules and what their constitution believes in is what they have to believe in, and that is what is something they are feeling now. They are being gagged. You remember very well when we were in the 11th Parliament, we could not believe we will stop party hopping, but Jubilee and ODM believed in it, and Wiper, the 3 parties believed we must stop party hopping. Why? Because they felt you need to institutionalize where if you fail, you are still within the party and you still believe within that party. And I think Kenyans now are also moving, and you'll find your supporters also agreeing with you that they believe in this and this. What NASA should ask themselves is one question, which I always thank the former Prime Minister, that he has his ideology, him as a person, that he believes in. And anyone who believes in him is unable to believe in any other leader. So that is one thing they should ask themselves. When the enigma of politics, Honorable Raila Odinga, moves out of NASA, what happens to these other parties?
Wow.
What do you do? Because he's the one who carries the mantle completely.
And many questions are being asked about NASA, that being one of them. What's happening between the parties now? Affiliate parties are kind of infighting, and the top strip of the Standard reads, take oath or just shut up. Raila allies tell Wiper leader. Now these are 2 parties within this big coalition called NASA. We'll be discussing that after the break.
Did they say shut up?
I'm just reading from the headlines.
Or it's media.
But Honorable Mazo responded to that.